Hi guys, welcome. It is a beautiful day. The sun is out. Another great and glorious day that the Lord has made. Feels like summer. It's warm. How is it where you guys are? Is it getting hot yet? Well, I hope you've had a great week. God's been good to you and your prayers have been answered. So we're going to get back into Samuel, 1 Samuel. And last week we were talking about how King Saul had called up and using the witch of Endor, the woman that speaks to the dead, Samuel, the prophet Samuel. So, and how unhappy God was about that. So we're going to finish up this week with 1 Samuel. We're in 1 Samuel 30 and talking about David. So let's get on with it. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Now it took David and his men 3 days to reach Ziklag. But while they had been away, the Amalekites had been raiding in the desert around there. They had attacked Ziklag, burned it to the ground, and had taken away the women and children. And when David and his men came to Ziklag, they saw that, they saw that their families had been taken captive. And they started crying and kept it up until they were too weak to cry anymore. David's two wives, Anom and Abigail, had been taken captive with everyone else. David was desperate. His soldiers were so upset over what had happened to their sons and daughters that they were thinking about stoning David to death. But he felt the Lord God giving him strength, and he said to the priest, Abiathar, let's ask God what to do. Good advice. Let's ask the Lord what to do in these situations. Abiathar brought everything he needed to get answers from God, and he went over to David. And then David asked the Lord, should I go after the people who raided our town? Can I catch up with them? Go after them, the Lord answered. You will catch up with them, and you will rescue your families. David led his 600 men to Besor Gorge, but 200 of them were too tired to go across. So they stayed behind while David and the other 400 men crossed the gorge. Well, some of David's men found an Egyptian out in the field, and they took him to David. They gave the Egyptian some bread, and he ate it. And then they gave him a drink of water, some dried figs, and 2 handfuls of raisins. This was the first time in 3 days he had tasted food or water, and now he felt much better. Who is your master? David asked, and where do you come from? I'm from Egypt, the young man answered. I'm the servant of an Amalekite, and he left me here 3 days ago because I was sick. We had attacked some towns in the desert where the Cherethites live, in the area that belonged to Judah, and in the desert where the Caleb clan lives, and we burned down Ziklag. Will you take me to those Amalekites? David asks. Yes, I will, if you promise with God as a witness that you won't kill me or hand me over to my master. He led David to the Amalekites, and they were eating and drinking everywhere, celebrating because of what they had taken from Philistia and Judah. David attacked them just before sunrise the next day, and he fought until sunset. Wow, that's a long day to fight. 400 Amalekites rode away on camels, but they were the only ones who escaped. David rescued his 2 wives and everyone else the Amalekites had taken from Ziklag. No one was missing, young or old, sons or daughters. David brought back everything that had been stolen, including their livestock. David also took the sheep and the cattle the Amalekites had with them, but he kept these separate from the others. Sorry, it's getting windy here. Everyone agreed that these would be David's reward. And on the way back, David went to the 200 men he had left at Besor Gorge because they had been too tired to keep up with him. They came toward David and the people who were with him. And when David was close enough, he greeted the 200 men and asked how they were doing. Some of David's men were good-for-nothings, and they said, those men didn't go with us to the battle, so they don't get any of the things we took back from the Amalekites. Let them take their wives and children and go. But David said, my friends, don't be so greedy with what the Lord has given us. The Lord protected us, and he gave us victory over the people who attacked. Who would pay attention to you anyways? Soldiers who stay behind to guard the camp get as much as those who go into battle. David made this a law for Israel, and it's been the same way ever since. Now David went back to Ziklag with everything he had taken from the Amalekites. He sent some of these things as gifts to his friends who were leaders of Judah, and he told them, "We took these things from the Lord's enemies. Please accept them as a gift." This is a list of the towns where David sent gifts: Bethel, Ramoth in the southern desert, Jatir, Aor, Siphmoth, Eshtemoa, Rakal, the towns belonging to the Jerahmeelites, and the Kenites, Hormah, Borashan, Athak, and Hebron. And he also sent gifts to the other towns where he and his men had traveled. Meanwhile, the Philistines were fighting Israel at Mount Gilboa. Israel's soldiers ran from the Philistines, and many of them were killed. The Philistines closed in on Saul and his sons, and they killed his sons Jonathan, Abinadab, and Meshua. The fighting was fierce around Saul, and he was badly wounded by enemy arrows. Saul told the soldier who carried his weapons, "Kill me with your sword. I don't want those worthless Philistines to torture me and make fun." But the soldiers were afraid to kill him. Saul then took out his own sword, he stuck the blade into his stomach, and he fell on it. And when the soldier knew that Saul was dead, he killed himself in the same way. And I think that was how Judas also killed himself. Saul was dead. His 3 sons were dead, and the soldier who carried his weapons was dead. They and all his soldiers died on that same day. And the Israelites on the other side of Jezreel Valley and the other side of the Jordan learned that Saul and his sons were dead. They saw that the Israelite army had run away, so they ran away too, and the Philistines moved into the towns the Israelites had left behind. The day after the battle, when the Philistines returned to the battlefield to take the weapons of the dead Israelite soldiers, they found Saul and his 3 sons lying dead on Mount Gilboa. The Philistines cut off Saul's head and pulled off his armor. Then they put his armor in the temple of the goddess Astarte, and they nailed his body to the city wall of Beth-shan. They also sent messengers everywhere in Philistia to spread the good news in the temples of their idols and among their people. The people who lived in Jabesh and Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul's body. So one night, some brave men from Jabesh went to Beth-shan, and they took down the bodies of Saul and his sons. And then they brought them back to Jabesh, and they burned them. They buried the bones under a small tree in Jabesh, and for 7 days they went without eating to show their sorrow. Well, that's the end of 1 Samuel. Now we're going to go into 2 Samuel, where David mourns for Saul. Saul was dead, and meanwhile David had defeated the Amalekites and returned to Ziklag. And 3 days later, a soldier came from Saul's army. His clothes were torn, and dirt was on his head. And that's how they showed sorrow. He went to David, and he knelt down in front of him. David asked, "Where did you come from?" The man answered, "From Israel's army. I barely escaped with my life." "Who won the battle?" David asked. And the man said, "Our army turned and ran, but many were wounded and died. Even King Saul and his son Jonathan are dead." David asked, "How do you know Saul and Jonathan are dead?" The young man replied, "I was on Mount Gilboa, and I saw King Saul leaning on his spear. The enemy's war chariots and cavalry were closing in on him, and when he turned around and saw me, he called me over. I went and asked what he wanted. Saul asked me, 'Who are you?' 'An Amalekite,' I answered. Then he said, 'Kill me, I'm dying and I'm in terrible pain.' So I killed him. I knew he was too badly wounded to live much longer, and then I took his crown and his armband, and I brought them to you, Your Majesty, and here they are." Got the helicopter coming over again. Never fails when I'm here, the helicopters come over. Well, right away, David and his soldiers tore their clothes in sorrow. They cried all day long, and they would not eat anything. Everyone was sad because Saul, his son Jonathan, and many of the Lord's people had been killed in the battle. David asked the young man, "Where is your home?" The man replied, "My father is an Amalekite, but we live in Israel." David said to him, "Why weren't you afraid to kill the Lord's chosen king? And who even told you what you did? And you even told what you did. It's your own fault that you're going to die." Then David told one of his soldiers, "Come here and kill this man." David sang a song in memory of Saul and Jonathan, and he ordered his men to teach the song to everyone in Judah, and he called it the Song of the Bow, and it can be found in the book of Joshua. This is the song. "Israel, your famous hero, lies dead on the hills, and your mighty warriors have fallen. Don't tell it in Gath or spread the news on the streets of Ashkelon. The godless Philistine women will be happy and jump for joy. Don't let dew or rain fall on the hills of Gilboa. Don't let its fields grow offerings for God. There the warriors' shields were smeared with blood, and Saul's own shield was left unpolished. The arrows of Jonathan struck, and warriors died. The sword of Saul cut the enemy apart. It was easy to love Saul and Jonathan. Together in life, together in death, they were faster than eagles and stronger than lions. Women of Israel, cry for Saul. He brought you fine red cloth and jewelry made of gold. Our warriors have fallen in the heat of battle, and Jonathan lies dead on the hills of Gilboa. Jonathan, I miss you most. I loved you like a brother. You were truly loyal to me, more faithful than a wife to her husband. Our warriors have fallen, and their weapons are destroyed." Later, David asked the Lord, "Should I go back to one of the towns of Judah?" And the Lord answered, "Yes." David asked, "Which town should I go to?" "Go to Hebron," the Lord replied. So David went to Hebron with his two wives, Ahinoam and Abigail. Ahinoam was from Jezreel, and Abigail was the widow of Nabal from Carmel. David also had his men and their families come and live in the villages near Hebron. The people of Judah met with David at Hebron and poured olive oil on his head to show that he was their new king. And then they told David, "The people from Jabesh in Gilead buried Saul." David sent messengers to tell them, "The Lord bless you. You were kind enough to bury Saul, your ruler, and I pray that the Lord will be kind and faithful to you. I will be your friend because of what you have done. Saul is dead, but the tribe of Judah has made me their king, so be strong and have courage." Abner, the son of Ner, had been the general of Saul's army, and he took Saul's son Ishbosheth across the Jordan River to Mahanaim and made him king of Israel, including the areas of Gilead, Asher, Jezreel, Ephraim, and Benjamin. Ishbosheth was 40 years old at the time, and he ruled for 2 years. But the tribe of Judah made David their king, and he ruled from Hebron for 7.5 years. Well, one day Abner and the soldiers of Ishbosheth left Mahanaim and went to Gibeon. And while Joab the son of Zeruiah was leading David's soldiers, the two groups met at the pool in Gibeon. Abner and his men sat down on one side of the pool, while Joab and his men sat on the other side. Abner yelled to Joab, "Let's have some of our best soldiers get up and fight each other." Joab agreed, and 12 of Ishbosheth's men from the tribe of Benjamin got up to fight 12 of David's men. They grabbed each other by the hair and stabbed each other in the side with their daggers, and they all died right there. That's why the place in Gibeon is called Field of Daggers. Then everyone started fighting. Both sides fought very hard, but David's soldiers defeated Abner and the soldiers of Israel. Zeruiah's 3 sons were there, Joab, Abishai, and Ashel. Ashel could run as fast as a deer in an open field, and he ran straight after Abner without looking to the right or to the left. When Abner turned and saw him, he said, "Is that you, Ashel?" Ashel answered, "Yes, it is I." Abner said, "There are soldiers all around. Stop chasing me and fight one of them. Kill him and take his clothes and weapons for yourself." But Ashel refused to stop. Abner said, "If you don't turn back, I'll have to kill you. Then I could never face your brother Joab again." But Ashel would not turn back, so Abner struck him in the stomach with the back end of his spear. The spear went all the way through and came out of his back. Ashel fell down and he died. And everyone who saw Ashel lying dead just stopped and stood still. But Joab and Abishai went after Abner. Finally, about sunset, they came to the hill of Ammah, not far from Giah, on the road to the Gibeon desert. Abner brought the men of Benjamin's together in one group on top of a hill, and they got ready to fight. Abner shouted to Joab, "Aren't we ever going to stop killing one another?" Good question. Don't you know that the longer we keep on doing this, the worse it's going to be when it's all over? When are you going to order your men to stop chasing their own relatives? Joab shouted back, "I swear by the living God, if you hadn't spoken, my men would have chased their relatives all night." Joab took his trumpet and he blew the signal for his soldiers to stop chasing the soldiers of Israel, and right away the fighting stopped. Abner and his troops marched through the Jordan River Valley all that night, and then they crossed the river and marched all morning until they arrived back at Mahanaim. As soon as Joab stopped chasing Abner, he got David's troops together and counted them. There were 19 missing besides Ashel. But David's soldiers had killed 360 of Abner's men from the tribe of Benjamin. Joab and his troops carried Ashel's body to Bethlehem and buried him in the family burial place. Comes a helicopter again. Then they marched all night and reached Hebron before sunrise. This battle was the beginning of a long war between the followers of Saul and the followers of David. Saul's power grew weaker, but David's grew stronger. Several of David's sons were born while he was living in Hebron. Let's wait a minute till that goes by. Listen to the birds instead. His oldest son was Amnon, whose mother was Enom from Jezreel. David's second son was Chileab, whose mother was Abigail, who had been married to Nabal from Carmel. Absalom was the third. His mother was Maacah, the daughter of King Talmai of Geshur. The fourth was Adijah, whose mother was Haggith. And the fifth was Shephatiah, whose mother was Abital. The sixth was Ithream, whose mother was Eglah, another one of David's wives. Boy, David had a lot of wives. As the war went on between the families of David and Saul, Abner was gaining more power than ever in Saul's family. He had even slept with the wife of Saul by the name of Rizpah, the daughter of Ai. But Saul's son Ishbosheth told Abner, "You shouldn't have slept with one of my father's wives." Abner was very angry at what Ishbosheth had said, and he told Ishbosheth, "Am I some kind of worthless dog from Judah? I've always been loyal to your father's family and to his relatives and friends. I haven't turned you over to David, and yet you talk to me as if I've committed a crime with this woman." See, this in Hebrew means a woman who is legally bound to a man, but without the full privileges of a wife. I ask God to punish me if I don't help David get what the Lord promised him. God said that he wouldn't let anyone in Saul's family ever be king again, and that David would be king instead. He also said that David would rule both Israel and Judah, all the way from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south. Ishbosheth was so afraid of Abner that he could not even answer. Abner sent some of his men to David with this message: "You should be the ruler of the whole nation. If you make an agreement with me, I will persuade everyone in Israel to make you their king." David sent this message back: "Good, I'll make an agreement with you, but before I will even talk with you about it, you must get Saul's daughter Michal back for me." David sent a few of his officials to Ishbosheth to give him this message: "Give me back my wife Michal. I killed 100 Philistines so I could marry her." Ishbosheth sent some of his men to take Michal away from her new husband, Paltiel, the son of Laish. Paltiel followed Michal and the men all the way to Bahurim, crying as he walked. But he went back home after Abner ordered him to leave. Abner talked with the leaders of the tribes of Israel and told them, "You've wanted to make David your king for a long time now, so do it." After all, God said he would use his servant David to rescue his people. Oops. Israel from their enemies, especially from the Philistines. Finally, Abner talked with the tribe of Benjamin, And then he left for Hebron to tell David everything that the tribe of Benjamin and the rest of the people of Israel wanted to do. Abner took 20 soldiers with him, and when they got to Hebron, David gave a big feast for them. After the feast, Abner said, "Your Majesty, let me leave now and bring Israel here to make an agreement with you. You'll be king of the whole nation, just as you've been wanting." David told Abner he could leave, and he left without causing any trouble. Soon after Abner had left Hebron, Joab and some of David's soldiers came back, bringing a lot of things they had taken from an enemy village. And right after they arrived, someone told Joab, "Abner visited the king, and the king let him go." Abner even left without causing any trouble. Joab went to David and he said, "What have you done? Abner came to you and you let him go? Now he's long gone. You know Abner. He came to trick you. He wants to find out how strong your army is and to know everything you're doing." Joab left David, and then he sent some messengers to catch up with Abner, and they brought him back from the well at Sirah. But David did not know anything about it. And when Abner returned to Hebron, Joab pretended he wanted to talk privately with him. So he took Abner into one of the small rooms that were part of the town gate, and he stabbed him in the stomach. Joab killed him because Abner had killed Joab's brother Asahel. David heard how Joab had killed Abner, and he said, "I swear to the Lord that I am completely innocent of Abner's death. Joab and his family are the guilty ones. I pray that Joab's family will always be sick with sores and other skin diseases. May they all be cowards, and may they die in war or starve to death." Oh my goodness, what a curse. Joab and his brother Asahel killed Abner because he had killed their brother Asahel in the battle of Gibeon. David told Joab and everyone with him, "Show your sorrow by tearing your clothes and wearing sackcloth. Walk in front of Abner's body and cry." David walked behind the stretcher on which Abner's body was being carried. Abner was buried in Hebron, while David and everyone else stood at the tomb, and they cried loudly. And then the king sang a funeral song about Abner. "Abner, why should you have died like an outlaw? No one tied your hands or chained your feet, yet you died as a victim of murderers." Everyone started crying again. Then they brought some food to David and told him he would feel better if he had something to eat. It was still daytime, and David said, "I swear to God that I'll not take a bite of bread or anything else until sunset." Everyone noticed what David did, and they liked it, just as they had always liked what he did. Now the people of Judah and Israel were certain that David had nothing to do with killing Abner. David said to his officials, "Don't you realize that today one of Israel's great leaders has died? I am the chosen king, but Joab and Abishai have more power than I do, so God will have to pay them back for the evil thing they did." And we're going to stop right there. It always amazes me how members of the same family can war against each other and even physically harm each other. Just as in the beginning where Cain and Abel fought, and Cain killed his own brother Abel. I just want to say a quick prayer now for everyone watching. First of all, I pray that you come to know the Father, Jesus, as your King and your Savior, because He's the only one that can save you in these times. Mere man cannot save you like the Father can. Second, I want to pray for your relationships, that the Father keep His hand in your relationships, so there be no fighting, there be no trouble, there be no arguments, that you can get along well with your family, there be peace in your family. And only God can give that peace that surpasses all human understanding. I also pray for your finances, that the Lord increase those so you can pay your bills, you can buy the things you need to buy, you can lend to those without. And I pray lastly for your health. I pray that God give you good health, that if you do have diseases or something wrong in your body, God will heal you. He will hear your prayers and He will heal you. And I pray that for you, that you do have good health. Thank you, Father, for everything you do for us. last but not least. And thank you for saving us when no one else could or would. Thank you for saving us in our sin while we were still sinning. You called us and saved us. Thank you for your mercy, your love, and your grace. And Lord, help us to go on this week and have a great week in your holy name. Help us to help others, to give where it's needed, to speak where it's needed. Give us wisdom and knowledge, Father. So, you guys, I hope you have a great rest of your week, a great weekend. Summer's coming. Everything's green. It's beautiful. It's a new start to life. And keep walking with the Lord. He is the only one that can give you peace. So until next time, let joy be yours and blessings and shalom to you.